Story 1. I become robotic. I give them the bare minimum in a polite but firm tone. I do not engage in unnecessary conversation. It gets old for them quickly. Story 2. I have worked in healthcare for over 15 years at the bedside. Most people are at least difficult to some extent when they are sick. Quite a few become extremely difficult when their loved one is sick and seemingly not getting better. To handle their behavior, I stop and stare at them for a moment, take a deep breath, and respond in an overly calm and monotone voice. When they interrupt, I pause and breathe. Then, once they stop yelling or insulting, I repeat my exact sentence from the beginning. I do this for about 3 to 4 times. If that approach does not work, I hold my hand up and say something like, I know you are frustrated or angry, but if you keep interrupting me, you will never understand how to get better. This method is effective in real-world situations as well. Conditioning myself not to react aggressively or to walk away is challenging. If the above does not work, I often turn my back and leave, stating, we can start the conversation over in a more cordial manner, or you can leave. Story 3. Keep your voice at the same volume as when you started the conversation. Do not increase it even by 1% if they start shouting. If they have any sense of shame, they might recognize they are in the wrong. If they completely lack that, then they will simply look worse in front of other people, at least. Story 4. No one is ever as important as they think they are, and I choose who I spend my time with. Story 5. It is not personal. It is their issues causing them to act that way. Why should I carry the burden of their dysregulated emotions? Story 6. When I hear someone say something foolish, I thoughtfully look at them, remain quiet, ignore them for a moment, and completely disregard what they said, continuing on with my day. That really bothers them. Story 7. I do not take obnoxious individuals seriously. When someone behaves inappropriately, it shows they lack basic understanding and believe everyone around them will cater to their thoughts, feelings, wants, or desires. To me, this attitude is pathetic, weak, and narrow-minded. I do not always respond to inappropriate behavior with the same attitude. If I did, that individual would continue to hold power over me, which is their primary objective. These individuals desire to exert control over others and bully them as a means of power. I strive to remain steadfast and unaffected, not treating them with kindness, but rather with blatant indifference. Sometimes, I find their behavior so pathetic that it becomes humorous. They are narrow-minded people. Allow yourself to be entertained by them. Story 8. Ironically, the solution is empathy and compassion. I am fortunate to be at a stage where I am happy in life. I am confident in who I am, the work I do, my health and appearance, and what I enjoy doing outside of work and with family. The first thing to understand about difficult people is that most of the time, they are fundamentally unhappy. Projecting that dissatisfaction onto everyone around them is not a healthy way of dealing with it. However, they may be so entrenched in their negativity that they cannot even recognize what they are doing. I can only control my own actions and perspectives, and that is not who I want to be. If I have genuinely made a mistake, I will own up to it. But if someone is just being rude and unreasonable, why should I take it personally when I know their behavior is ultimately just a reflection of themselves? Story 9. Do not take criticism from someone you would not take advice from. It makes life much easier. There are only a few people from whom I will take advice. Everyone else can disregard it. Story 10. There are 2 secrets to life, my friend, just 2. Master them and you will be happy and successful. The first is simple: be on time. There is a hypothesis that says people who are late do so because they are exerting power and control over a situation. When someone is late, it impacts everyone, disrupts everything, and the late person is the center of negative attention. Just don't be late. The second is infinitely harder. Control your reaction. You are the master of your universe, and your reality is shaped by how you interact with it. If you give others the power to upset you, you become their plaything. If someone has a suggestion on how to do your job better, what does it hurt to listen? If someone yells at you, pity them, they've lost control. Be on time and control your reaction. 2 concepts, 6 words. That's it. Story 11. I spent almost 35 years of my life feeling sheepish and afraid. I spent afternoons scavenging and mornings slinking around school hallways, watching for bullies. Later, I obtained intelligence and a job that provided financial stability, but that meant nothing when I was being pushed around by others. I started going to the gym and learned to love the skin I was in, which helped me love myself. Then it all just clicked. I'm still occasionally intimidated by people, but I've come to understand that the more someone tries to be an alpha male, the less of a man they are. Just because someone can physically overpower you does not mean they are the better man in the grand scheme. Learning to de-escalate situations and not take things personally resolves most potential issues. There are better people than me. I admire the theoretical physicists, self-made millionaires, and bodybuilders. But that's okay. I may not be the best at anything, but as long as I am the best version of myself, no one can take that from me. Story 12. Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to stupidity or ignorance. It's amazing how much better you feel when you realize that sometimes people simply do not know better. Story 13. There are many good answers here. If you do not have to work with them, do not. However, if you do have to work with them, whether it is for a job or family, remember that they are people too, and someone or something made them this way. In a year, no one will care about the moment you are dealing with. Story 14. I see their displacement from who they are and understand they have no choice in their emotional and mental constriction. They are all caught up in primitive defenses, trying to get what they need to feel less afraid or more empowered. I can breathe in their distress and exhale calm, loving light if I am willing to do the work. Story 15. I am in construction. From the time I was a foreman to now as an owner, I have often been assigned difficult jobs, whether for homeowners or contractors. Difficult people tend to take advantage of those who allow them to behave that way. Do not flinch or waver. Maintain a steady voice. No matter what they say or do, treat it as part of a normal conversation. This is the easiest way to disarm someone who behaves poorly. They thrive on conflict, so if you react, they gain the upper hand. Story 16. I have seen and heard my share of challenges. I have mastered the art of dissociation. I can hear and understand everything coming out of their mouths and respond to them. However, mentally, I have numbed myself. I can even perform the trick of relaxing that unusual eye muscle, causing me to see blurry, even though I am wearing my glasses. Story 17. Oh, I wish I knew how to deal with loud-mouthed, opinionated, foul-mouthed individuals. I try to laugh with them and keep my mouth shut, but it is hard and spoils work for me. It's heaven when he has a day off. Story 18. A few things to consider. People are people and we all have our challenging moments. That's all right. If someone's entire personality comes across that way all the time, the best approach is to smile, joke, and use body language to let them know their negativity won't affect my day. At the same time, we sometimes need to work or network with difficult individuals, and occasionally even live with them. Can be frustrating, but that's life. The key is to always look for something to smile or laugh about, even if it's about how challenging the situation may be. Story 19. I am partially deaf. I can tune out distractions. It does not hurt that I grew up with a passive-aggressive mother who loved to mutter under her breath and freeze me out because I did not do things her way. Story 20. I worked in contact centers for about 10 years before transitioning to corporate roles. Insulting. Ask them to repeat by saying, "Sorry, I think I lost you for a bit. Can you please repeat what you just said?" They seldom repeat it. Yelling. Speak very softly and continue talking as if you can't hear them yell. They will become aware of their own volume, creating what feels like a one-sided monologue. Uncooperative. Engage in back-and-forth communication. State your point and return the conversation to them. The way I see it is this and that. What's your perspective on this? For uncooperative customers requiring collaboration to resolve an issue, create a minor conflict to provoke slight frustration, then resolve it by acknowledging their concerns. For example, question the context or how things transpired. As the customer expresses frustration, don't let it escalate. Instead say, "Oh, I see. That's detrimental to your workflow. It's rather upsetting. Then reassure them that their issue is important, stating, "Naturally, I'll do my very best to help you." This conversation doesn't end until there's a solution, regardless of whether a solution follows. For rude individuals in large meetings, I let them speak while keeping my microphone open and simply responding with throughout. If they address me directly, I might say, "It seems like you're very confident in that view." Others will form their own opinions. In one-on-one situations with rude individuals, I might say, "I trust your expertise in this matter. Can you please guide me?" Or, "I see, but I don't fully understand the problem we're trying to solve." Encourage them to repeat their thoughts until they calm down and can focus. Rules of thumb. Nobody is against you or wants to harm you. They simply seek to benefit themselves. Address the customer's immediate concerns first, then tackle the issue. Everyone has their own challenges. People will act according to their desires, regardless of previous statements. It's not you against them. It's both of you against a shared challenge, such as technology or societal issues. Aim to bring them to your side. Your colleagues are also your customers. Story 21. By not being ashamed to assert yourself. I am very polite and respectful at first, but the moment someone disrespects me, I can become very assertive. By demonstrating that you can excel in their own game, they tend to let you go and treat you normally. Because if they don't, they will face consequences. You can always identify others' weaknesses, and if they provoke you with their attitude, you must respond accordingly. Ignoring their behavior only encourages their rudeness. People of this nature thrive on individuals who cannot stand up for themselves. The moment you show them that you are much better at their game, they will seek out another target for their behavior and leave you alone. Story 22. I refuse to give someone that much power over me. The poor life choices and attitudes of non-player characters do not affect my life. Once they are out of view, do they even exist anymore? Story 23. Inner peace comes from realizing that the only person who can make you upset is yourself. Do not let their actions or words affect you. Instead, find humor in their behavior. Story 24. Reading the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving AF*CK, is a good place to start. It offers valuable perspective. Story 25. Be better than them. I will be more likable to everyone else. I will do a better job than they do. I will be more professional than they are. I will do everything possible to outshine them and marginalize them until they either get pushed aside or willingly decide to leave. It has worked out for me a couple of times with two difficult colleagues I worked with. Story 26. I think you need to realize that some people are difficult, and it's not your fault. If they choose to behave poorly, that reflects more on them than on you. Story 27. Verbal judo can be a useful skill, and sometimes it's enjoyable to playfully annoy others. Transform their anger into humor. If I'm not in the mood, I put in minimal effort and walk away when possible. Story 28. I speak to them in a condescending way, as if talking to a child acting out, which usually angers them even more, but I find it amusing. The trick is to not only make them unpleasant, but also to make them look like absolute fools, so you can carry on with your day. After all, why let a fool ruin it? Story 29. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. I focus on what is in my control. I can't control whether others are unkind, but I can control my own behavior. My actions and reactions are my own. I've found that it's not others behaving poorly that upsets you. It's your expectation that they should behave a certain way and that they aren't meeting that expectation. You can control that. You can't force someone to negotiate, but there are usually ways around roadblocks. Try to find an alternate avenue. It's possible you won't need them to negotiate, and paradoxically, they might then be the most willing. Story 30. You have to remind yourself that the difficult people you encounter in life are also complex human beings. For all you know, that rude customer you served may have a child in the hospital battling cancer, and their outburst may be the result of months of stress finally boiling over. I have certainly snapped at someone because I was going through a rough time, so I understand. I know we are often conditioned to assume that everyone is a bad actor until proven otherwise, but honestly, some time ago, I set a goal for myself to stop assuming the worst in everyone, and so far, it's been a much nicer way to live. Story 31. I worked in customer service for a mail-order pharmacy over a decade ago. Often, there would be many upset customers who didn't receive their medications due to insurance reasons. I would politely try to explain what happened, but I was almost always interrupted by yelling. I would sit in silence for a long time after they finished ranting because many people were just looking for a reaction. That long silent pause often led to customers questioning themselves, and I would frequently receive an apology. Story 32. I just remember that everyone is as human as I am. Therefore, they will see the light and realize they are being rude. If they don't, then they are not as human as I am, and I have no business arguing with any living thing that is not of my species. This obviously changes if I am arguing with someone about something that truly matters and directly affects me. If this is the case, I make sure I do two things: get my full point across and listen to their full point. I don't have to be heard, and I don't need to agree with them, but beyond these two things, there is literally nothing else you can accomplish other than pure reclusion or violence. You'll be surprised by how many people just want an argument but become agreeable when you refuse to engage. However, doing this may make you appear rude yourself. Story 33. When asked to do a task, I nod and agree. When asked why I did not complete a task, I respond, "I'll take care of that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention." The secret is that it is the same task I already did not complete, and it is still not getting done now either. Like those penguins from the movie, March of the Penguins. I just wave. Never defend your actions. Never explain or provide excuses. Always ask for permission, not forgiveness. Story 34. I just don't have the energy. I don't want to lower myself to their level. They want me to get angry, but I don't want to give them that satisfaction. There's nothing to gain. It's not a competition. Humor really helps. Story 35. It is almost never worth it. It is not worth my time or energy. Additionally, stating facts and figures while remaining calm usually gains control quickly. Story 36. In the workplace, it is important to manage personal ego. While some individuals may exhibit arrogance, this behavior often stems from ignorance or a wealth of knowledge. Once you determine the root cause, you can either accept their arrogance as valuable advice or choose to ignore it while allowing them to express themselves. As long as you do not hurt their pride, you will typically find yourself on their good side, and the negative behavior may decrease. Story 37. I work in information technology. My brain triggers the same way with children as it does with difficult individuals. As long as I imagine them as giant upset children, I can remain calm and controlled. Story 38. I work for money. My enjoyment of my job is far down the list. If my lack of enjoyment no longer justifies my pay, I will leave and find a new job. Story 39. In my experience, it is usually one of two things: a lack of self-respect, meaning that one can be treated poorly as long as a polite tone is used. The more common reason is that they need the job or they will suffer severe consequences. You would be surprised at how much abuse a person can endure when they have no other options. Story 40. As a consultant, I have learned that when dealing with difficult individuals, it is best to let them be difficult. At 5 p.m., I close my laptop and those individuals are no longer on my mind, nor are they contributing to my thoughts. If they are particularly rude, I will simply charge them for an additional hour or two. The cost of being difficult is being responsible for my hobbies. If they are unwilling to compromise when necessary, that is fine. We will proceed according to their preferences, and in the end, the bill will reflect the reason we attempted to negotiate. In my personal life, I avoid surrounding myself with unkind individuals. If I encounter one, I know that they will likely be out of my life within a few minutes, so there is no need to allow them to occupy my mental or emotional space. Story 41. I can't say I'm completely immune to difficult people, but a tactic I've learned is to respond to passive aggression by playing dumb. My own responses help me stay calm while irritating the passive-aggressive person further. Either say what you mean, or I will continue taking things literally. Story 42. Do not give them the time of day. Remain calm and do what you need to do. They are not worth your headspace. Story 43. This topic came up between a coworker and me just yesterday. I told her I wish I could bottle my energy because I stay unbothered. She gets stressed by others easily. Mostly, if I don't know the person, they are insignificant to me. Why on earth should I care or react to them? I have had people say nasty things to me, and my go-to response is, "Who are you?" It throws them off and lets them know they are no one to me and I don't care. When I actually have to work with difficult people for the sake of the job, I ignore petty behavior and address them professionally when necessary. I also try to give people some grace, meet them where they are, and understand why they behave that way. Knowing why they act like that really helps me stay unbothered. I don't know why, but if I find out their history or trauma, I can tolerate difficult people more. I don't say all this to sound self-important. My self-esteem isn't great, and if anyone is going to bully me, it's going to be me. Story 44. I agree with what they say, often responding with a simple acknowledgement. I also consider their behavior from a psychological perspective. It stems from their upbringing and environment. Their consequences will come eventually. I've learned that it takes more of my energy to engage with difficult individuals rather than simply ignoring them and demonstrating that such behavior does not affect me. As long as they do not attack me psychologically or physically, I refrain from giving them any attention. Story 45. I have convinced myself they cannot help it, so I literally tune them out. I do not get angry when a dog barks. It is in their nature. I just do not pay attention to the energy they give off, and somehow the universe ensures I do not have to experience them very much. I am not startled when a loud train rumbles down a platform. As a native New Yorker, when a person is much older than I am, I remind myself they have more life behind them than ahead of them. That helps me too. Story 46. A few things. 1. If this person doesn't control my finances, home, children, car, spouse, job, or education, then their opinion and attitude are irrelevant to my life. I have experienced true pain in my life. My father dying of pancreatic cancer, divorce, my child being harmed by her stepfather and biological mother, along with the court, child protective services, and medical bills that followed. No other person can come close to this, and so I pay their opinion and attitude no mind. In general, being offended or affected by anyone's attitude or opinion shows emotional and mental weakness. Those who are weak do not get very far in life and tend to have a harder existence than most. I refuse to let that be me because I have one short life on this planet, and I am not wasting it being bothered by negative individuals. These 3 thoughts run through my mind every time I come across disrespectful people, and I end up winning because of it. Story 47. I realize someone out there considers me unkind despite my best efforts. For that reason, I try not to worry too much about those I perceive as unkind. Ignorance is similar to being dead. It doesn't hurt the ignorant person, just everyone around them. They are blissfully unaware and incapable of being informed. Story 48. Apathy. I truly don't care. Everyone is just trying to do their job and go home. Did you miss something? Okay, I'll fix it. Did I miss something? Okay, let's fix it. Honestly, at this point, if people show up to work and make any effort to do something, I'm happy. Story 49. When I was a manager of a team of about 30 people, all with over 20 years of experience in the field, there was one person who stood out. I don't want to label him, but he struggled to adapt to new technology. He would often come to me with complaints, usually about issues that were not significant. After trying to address his concerns, I would respond, "What do you think the solution is to fix that?" His usual reply was, "I don't have one." I would then say, "Okay, go back to your seat, think of a solution, and bring it to me so we can discuss it." He stopped complaining. Story 50. As you get older, you come to a revelation that may as well be enlightenment. There are very few people worth losing your paycheck or serving a prison sentence over. I may get frustrated and vent with coworkers or friends in private, but the moment I'm at work, my professional demeanor takes over. If I have a problem with someone, I tend to keep our interactions short and polite to prevent making the situation any worse than it already is. Story 51. 1. Recognize that difficult people aren't difficult due to anything wrong with you. They are difficult because something is wrong with them. Never lose your composure in front of a difficult person. That's exactly what they are hoping for. Always be professional. Take the difficult person aside and have a frank and direct discussion with them. Tell them you notice their behavior and ask them why. Then ask them to please refrain from continuing it. If that doesn't work, either directly address their behavior in front of others, if you have the personality for it, or notify a superior. Always be kind to everyone. People will be much more likely to support you and help you deal with the difficult person if you treat everyone else well. Story 52. If I notice someone is unreasonable, I immediately lose all hope of them ever being reasonable and act accordingly. Being hopeful that people can be reasoned with is what I believe causes hurtful feelings. I'm not an expert, but this approach works wonders for me. Story 53. We are all going to die and nothing goes with us. Live your life and let others be as they are. Who cares about them? They will die too. Story 54. Many of these individuals behave like children throwing tantrums. Do not give them the reaction they seek. While it is easier said than done, I have de-escalated numerous situations by simply staying calm. Story 55. I grew up in a war-torn country in Central America, then came to the United States and finished growing up in a rough neighborhood, dealing with drugs. I survived a brain aneurysm and a brain tumor, which required 2 surgeries. I used psychedelics for 2 years in a row at age 26. I have witnessed many deaths in my life, along with several other painful, traumatic moments. I left my religion in the hospital after learning about mental willpower, becoming able-bodied again after being paralyzed for about half a year. I have worked in the medical field and human resources for several years and now work in information technology. These are just a few things from my life. There is not a single person who can affect me in any way, let alone with words. I wouldn't say I am fearless, but I do not fear deities or death. I know where I stand in the universe. I am just a regular guy who can recognize that every human breathes and bleeds just like me. I am neither above nor below anyone. However, there are a few things that no one can take from me: my sanity and my peace. I use psychology to affect people's minds if they push me. People who think they are superior or own me have had very difficult times with me and quickly find out that I do not tolerate that behavior. I am willing to give my life if it means someone else will survive. But to this day, there is nobody who can bring me down to their level. I work well with everyone willing to help themselves and will help them even more if they also help me. I am quick to ignore and belittle rude, stubborn, or bossy individuals because I believe someone must ground them mentally. If they get upset, that is their problem. They should probably use common sense in regard to human relations and behavior. You receive from the world an equal amount to what you put in, and I take that very seriously when it comes to my personal being. Story 56. By realizing it is not worth getting upset and arguing with them, especially in the workplace, I always make it a point to be the bigger person for my own sake. I do not let anyone like that bother me, especially since such people tend to be straightforward. Story 57. 2 strategies I use are: first, don't let them invade your mental space. It's yours. Second, I assume they're dealing with something difficult and it is manifesting as rude behavior. The issues could be long-lasting, so I try not to judge their coping capabilities. I just don't take it personally. Now, if someone does go after me or my family, that's a different story. I don't handle that well. Story 58. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I encounter today may be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and unpleasant. They behave this way because they cannot distinguish good from evil. However, I have observed the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, recognizing that wrongdoers share a nature similar to my own, not of the same blood and birth, but of the same mind, possessing a part of the divine. Therefore, none of them can hurt me. No one can involve me in ugliness. Nor can I feel anger toward my relatives or hate them. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the upper and lower rows of teeth. To obstruct one another is unnatural. To feel anger at someone or to turn your back on them is also unnatural. Story 59. My son's grandmother is one of those people. She was abused a lot as a child by her ex-husbands and various others. One day, she had an epiphany and realized that she didn't have to accept it. Instead, she repressed her feelings. She worked at a particularly challenging Walmart and mentioned that she was placed in customer service within a week because she doesn't give people the satisfaction. Story 60. When you realize that their issue has nothing to do with you, you are free from the emotional weight of accounting for their actions, as they do not take responsibility for themselves. Make it clear that you will not defend their mistakes. Story 61. Killing them with kindness is very effective. When it isn't, I walk away knowing they are just foolish. However, I may replay the scenario in different ways for the next week. What if I had called him a coward and slapped him? Story 62. I don't actively listen to them. It's funny because we have a new employee at the job, and many people already find her annoying because she's always talking about herself or being bossy. Some colleagues were discussing an altercation involving her and another employee while I was right next to them, and I swear I didn't hear anything. I have no idea what happened, and my friends are like, how does she not affect you? When I don't find something interesting like a conversation or meeting, I just disconnect completely. I'm still listening, probably staring right back at you, while in my mind, I'm going on a walk as I wait for the situation to pass. If they ask me a question afterward, I just say, it is what it is, and walk away to drink water or do something else. Story 63. I have developed my social awareness to the point that I am no longer afraid of their unacceptable behavior. I will address it directly and remain in the discomfort for as long as necessary to communicate my message. If they refuse to negotiate, I will go over or around them and make the decision myself. They are merely an obstacle to my goals, and I will take action if necessary. Story 64. I work in a corporate environment and possess specific skills and knowledge that make my teams valuable to various cross-functional teams. However, we have limited bandwidth. I must prioritize work based on importance, as I receive around 50 competing requests each week. If you are disrespectful to me or anyone in my organization, your requests will not be prioritized. I will refer you to the documentation for guidance on how to complete tasks independently. Story 65. I once had someone ask me, everybody else has a hard time working for me. How come you don't? I replied, you are difficult to work with and I can accept that. Nothing I do will change that. I will work for you until it becomes too much, but I won't let it affect me. He just shook his head and agreed. Story 66. I have realized that most of the time, their response has nothing to do with you. They have their own issues to deal with and are taking it out on you. I have learned not to take it personally. However, I also do not tolerate people speaking to me that way. Therefore, I will do what I need to end the conversation and then remove myself from their life. Story 67. Half the time, they are difficult to deal with because, and I mean this very seriously, they are either petty, unhappy individuals trapped in a life that rarely offers them the opportunity to be otherwise, or they are the kind of self-blind, self-righteous person who will be surprised to find themselves facing consequences in the afterlife. Sometimes they deserve pity. Sometimes they are just individuals having a bad day. Short tempers happen. Unless someone is actually interfering with my ability to do my job, I will simply ignore their words. If it is more than words, then action can be taken. Story 68. I do not care and will walk away while they are talking. That truly annoys them. I continue walking as they start yelling. However, I also refuse to raise my voice and engage in a discussion until they reach their limit. I learned years ago how to dismantle someone while smiling at them, without raising my voice. Story 69. This is finally my time to shine. I have found one thing I am always right about, as if I had an omnipotent crystal ball. Whenever I see someone acting rude, arrogant, or outwardly hostile, I can make a perfect prediction about them. Their life is difficult. It's always true. They might seem rich or popular, but it definitely is tough from their perspective. Take Janet from accounting, who always says that one thing to annoy you. She has an eating disorder and chronic depression. She sits at home every night after work alone with her two cats, watching TV and waiting for the next day to start. What about that guy who bullies you in high school? His parents don't care about him. He doesn't know what emotional support is. His dad tells him that real men don't have feelings, and sometimes he even beats him on the few nights he is home. His new mom is chaotic and likely has a substance abuse problem, as she steals his things. That boss who you can never please? He has been under pressure for the past 2 years for failing to meet key performance indicators. Without his job, he feels worthless to his self-centered wife, who openly dislikes him, and his grown children hardly talk to him. He spent the last 20 years working long hours and barely knows them. Now, he may have to sell his boat, house, and truck, his only sources of self-worth. Their lives are tough, and I have never been wrong about this. Since I had this realization, I try to consider other situations, and I always find I am right. The stories I shared are real, from people I have had negative experiences with. These days, I immediately feel empathy for them. It's not unconditional. They are still accountable for their actions. But I don't get upset. I simply understand they are in a bad situation and hope for their improvement. Story 70. In a retail or customer service setting, what people express annoyance about is rarely the true issue bothering them. It is simply something they can vocalize and have someone compelled to listen. If you can identify the underlying problem, it becomes much easier to address their concerns. An angry customer who leaves satisfied is likely to be more loyal than one who was never upset. Story 71. I have worked in hospitality for most of my life, and I am very good at it. The secret to dealing with people is to accept them as they are. They are just people. Sometimes individuals may interact with us when we are having an off day, and we might think, what a jerk. So, I remind myself that they could also be having a bad day, and I would appreciate the same courtesy if our roles were reversed. In the case of truly difficult individuals, when they decide to cause a scene or create a fuss over nothing, there is a high chance they are unhappy in their own lives. They may have left their home feeling upset. That realization makes me feel sympathy for them. So I respond with a charming demeanor, a touch of sarcasm, and as many relevant facts about the situation as I can provide. It should not bother you because who are these people trying to upset you? You are stronger than the comments or wrong assumptions of others. It does take a thick skin, and I won't lie about that. Be confident in yourself and your abilities. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.